Aliyah Miller never imagined her wedding day would come like this. That morning, her Korean fiancé ended their engagement with one sentence: "My family will never accept you." No call, no explanation, just rejection. By nightfall, Aliyah was standing at another altar, this time beside his grandfather, Chairman Jung Min-ho, the man who built the family empire, the man everyone feared more than they loved. It wasn't romance, it was survival. When he came to her hotel room earlier that day, his offer was calm and deliberate. "Marry me," he said, "and the humiliation ends tonight." Aliyah didn't cry. She didn't beg. She negotiated. 1 year, she replied. Public marriage, private rules, I walk away with my dignity. He agreed without blinking. That should have scared her. Now, hours later, the penthouse was silent. The city glowed beneath the windows. Chairman Jung poured 2 glasses of wine and spoke again, slow, measured. "I didn't marry you to punish my grandson." Aliyah froze. He turned to her, his voice steady, unreadable. "I married you because you didn't look at me like a savior or a monster." The room felt smaller. "Every woman in my life wanted something from me," he continued. "You wanted terms." Aliyah understood something then, fast. This marriage wasn't revenge, it was a test, and whatever he truly wanted from her, it started tonight. She lifted her glass anyway, not in fear, not in love, but ready. Before the story continues, let me say this. If any of these stories comfort you, entertain you, or make you feel understood, please subscribe. It's free, but it means everything to this channel. Now, let's continue. The wine tasted like possibility and danger mixed together. Aliyah took a measured sip, her dark eyes never leaving Chairman Jung Min-ho's face. The penthouse stretched around them, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Seoul's glittering skyline, minimalist furniture that whispered of wealth beyond measure, and silence so profound she could hear her own heartbeat. She'd entered this space 12 hours ago as a discarded fiancé. Now she wore a simple ivory dress, not white, never white, because this wasn't that kind of wedding, and a gold band that caught the city lights when she moved her hand. Min-ho stood by the window, his silver-streaked hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. At 68, he carried himself like a man who'd built empires with his bare hands and protected them with calculated ruthlessness. The sharp lines of his tailored suit suggested a body that hadn't surrendered to age, and when he turned to face her fully, Aliyah noted the intelligence in his eyes, the kind that missed nothing. "You negotiated well today," he said, moving toward the sitting area where she stood. "Most people in your position would have simply accepted or refused. Most people in my position wouldn't have been in that hotel room to begin with." Aliyah set her glass down on the marble side table with deliberate care. "You could have sent an assistant with the offer. You could have made it through lawyers, but you came yourself." A flicker of something, perhaps amusement, crossed his features. "Go on." "That tells me this matters to you personally, not just business, not just punishment for Woo-sok." She smoothed her hands over her curves, a gesture of self-assurance rather than nerves. "You wanted to see how I'd react, whether I'd crumble or calculate." Min-ho settled into the leather chair across from her, gesturing for her to sit. She did, crossing her legs with the poise she'd cultivated during her years building her own marketing firm in Atlanta before relocating to Seoul for Woo-sok, before the rejection, before this. "My grandson," Min-ho began, his tone neutral, "is weak, brilliant in his way, but weak where it matters. He allowed his mother's prejudices to dictate his future. He chose comfort over courage." Aliyah's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. "You're saying he should have fought for me. I'm saying he should have fought for anything he claimed to love." Min-ho leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. "Love isn't declaration, it's defense. He declared you to me 6 months ago, proudly even. He brought you to family dinners. Then, when his mother applied pressure, he folded like paper. The wound was still fresh. That morning seemed like a lifetime ago. Woo-sok's text message arriving while she'd been preparing for what she thought would be a meeting with the family to finalize wedding details. Instead, "I can't do this. My family will never accept you. I'm sorry." No video call, no voice, just words on a screen, delivered like a business memo. She'd sat in that hotel room for 2 hours, oscillating between rage and devastation, before the knock came. Chairman Jung Min-ho, unannounced, impeccable, offering her something she hadn't expected. Revenge, dressed as matrimony. Why me? Aaliyah asked now, pulling herself back to the present. You could marry anyone. Someone from your world. Someone who'd bring political advantage or business connections. I could, he agreed, but they would bore me within a week. They would want position, status, my money. They would perform affection while calculating inheritance. He picked up his own wine glass, studying the burgundy liquid. You wanted terms. That's honest. That's interesting. And you think a year of contractual marriage will be interesting? I think you will be interesting. Minho's smile was slight but genuine. You built a firm from nothing in a foreign country. You learned Korean in 18 months, not just conversational, but business fluent. You negotiated contracts with companies that tried to lowball you because of your age, your gender, your race. And you won, every time. He paused. I did my research, Aaliyah Miller. You're not a victim. You're a strategist who got outmaneuvered by someone you trusted. The accuracy of that assessment stung and thrilled her simultaneously. She'd been so focused on love, on building a future with Woo Sok, that she'd missed the signs. His mother's cold politeness, the way family conversations would pause when she entered rooms, the subtle suggestions that maybe they should keep the engagement private for now. She'd ignored the red flags because she'd wanted the fairy tale, the international romance, the cultural bridge, the proof that love transcended boundaries. What a fool she'd been. So this marriage, Aaliyah said carefully, is your way of teaching him a lesson? No. Minho set down his glass with a soft click. This marriage is my way of reminding my family that I decide who belongs in it. The lesson is secondary. He stood, moving to a side table where a folder waited. He brought it to her. But I won't pretend there aren't benefits to both of us. Aaliyah opened the folder. Inside were documents, contracts, property deeds, bank statements. Her eyes widened as she scanned the contents. The penthouse is yours after the year, regardless of whether you stay or go, Minho explained. The business partnership I'm proposing, a joint venture between your marketing firm and my holdings, remains intact even if you walk away. The connections I'll provide to Korea's top corporations are genuine and permanent. This is, Aaliyah looked up at him, genuinely surprised. This is far more than you needed to offer. Yes. He returned to his chair, which should tell you something. That you're buying something beyond appearances? That I'm investing in someone I believe has value beyond this arrangement. Minho's expression grew serious. I'm old, Aaliyah. Not dying, not weak, but old enough to know that interesting people are rare. You walked into my grandson's life and made him better for 8 months. He worked harder, smiled more, started questioning his mother's control. Then he broke. That's his failure, not yours. The compliment, delivered so matter-of-factly, nearly undid her carefully maintained composure. She blinked against the sudden heat behind her eyes. I'm not looking for salvation, she said quietly. Good. I'm not offering it. He smiled again, warmer this time. I'm offering partnership. You play the role of my wife in public. Attend events, appear at family gatherings, let them all wonder and whisper. In private, you do as you please. Build your business. Live your life. At the end of the year, we reassess. And if I want to leave, you leave. Wealthier, better connected, and with the satisfaction of watching my family squirm for 12 months. Aaliyah closed the folder, her mind racing through implications and possibilities. This was insane. Marrying a man 40 years her age, a man she'd met exactly 3 times before today, twice at formal family dinners where he'd been polite but distant, and once at Woo Sok's apartment when he'd stopped by unexpectedly. But it was an opportunity, a power play, a way to transform humiliation into strategy. She thought of her mother back in Atlanta who'd warned her about moving to Seoul for a man, thought of her best friend, Simone, who'd said, "Girl, make sure you're building your own empire, not just supporting his," thought of herself at 25, starting her firm with nothing but talent and determination, refusing to let anyone diminish her. That woman wouldn't cry over rejection. That woman would find the angle, the advantage. That woman would say yes. "I have one additional term," Aaliyah said, meeting Minho's gaze directly. "Name it." "I want monthly meetings where we review the arrangement honestly. If either of us is unhappy, we adjust. No passive aggression, no silent resentment. We talk like adults." Minho's smile widened. "Agreed. Anything else?" "Yes." She stood, straightening her dress. "I want my own wing of this penthouse, my own space. I'll share public areas, but I need privacy. The East Wing is yours." "I've already had your belongings from the hotel brought up." He gestured toward a hallway she hadn't explored yet. "Your former hotel suite's contents are being delivered tomorrow." Of course he'd already arranged it. The man thought 3 moves ahead. "Then I believe we have a deal, Chairman Jung." "Minho," he corrected gently. "In private, at least, you should call me Minho." The intimacy of that small request caught her off guard, but she recovered quickly. "Minho, and you call me Aaliyah, not Mrs. Jung. Not yet. Maybe not ever." "Fair enough." He extended his hand and she shook it, his grip firm, warm, respectful. "To an interesting year." "To surviving it," she countered. They stood like that for a moment, hands clasped, the city glowing behind them. Then Minho released her and stepped back. "You must be exhausted. Your suite is ready. We have a family dinner tomorrow night, your first public appearance as my wife. I suggest rest." Aaliyah nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of the day crash over her. "Tomorrow night. I'll be ready." "I don't doubt it." He moved toward the master bedroom on the opposite end of the penthouse. At the doorway, he paused. "Aaliyah, for what it's worth, my grandson was a fool. His loss is my gain." Before she could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Aaliyah stood alone in the living room, the city sprawling beneath her, and allowed herself one moment of vulnerability. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up her wine glass and finished its contents. Then she straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked toward the East Wing. She had a family dinner to prepare for, a performance to perfect, a new life to build from the ashes of the old one, and she would be magnificent. The private dining room at Jung Holdings' executive restaurant hummed with tension disguised as civility. Aaliyah surveyed the space as she entered, walls adorned with traditional Korean art, a long table set with pristine white linens, and 11 pairs of eyes tracking her every movement. Minho's hand rested lightly at the small of her back, a gesture of possession and protection that wasn't lost on anyone present. She'd dressed carefully for this, a deep emerald dress that hugged her curves while maintaining elegance, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo, minimal jewelry except for the wedding band that caught the light. She looked like money, like power, like someone who belonged, even if she didn't feel it yet. "Family," Minho announced, his voice carrying effortless authority. "May I properly introduce my wife, Aaliyah Miller Jung." The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Woo-sok sat frozen at the table's middle, his face pale, eyes wide with something between horror and disbelief. Next to him, his mother, Jung Hae-won, wore an expression of pure venom barely concealed beneath social propriety. The others, Minho's daughter, various cousins, executives, displayed reactions from shock to poorly suppressed amusement. "Grandfather," Woo-sok finally managed, his voice strangled. What is this?" "This is my wedding announcement," Minho replied smoothly, guiding Aaliyah to the seat beside his at the head of the table. "I apologize for the short notice. The ceremony was intimate. just the two of us and the officiant. We preferred privacy. Aaliyah sat with practiced grace, keeping her expression serene despite her racing heart. She'd rehearsed this moment with Min-ho earlier. The key was to appear comfortable, confident, unbothered by the chaos her presence caused. "Mother," Haewon said sharply, addressing the elegant woman in traditional hanbok at the table's opposite end. "Did you know about this?" Min-ho's ex-wife, Jung Sun-hee, regarded the scene with cool assessment. "Your father makes his own decisions, Haewon, as he always has. But she's—" Haewon's eyes darted to Aaliyah, then away, as if looking directly at her would cause physical pain. "She's Woo-sok's former fiancée. This is inappropriate. It's embarrassing for the family." What's embarrassing is a man ending an engagement via text message. What's embarrassing is allowing prejudice to dictate personal decisions. What's embarrassing is a family that claims honor while practicing cowardice. The rebuke landed like a slap. Haewon's face flushed red, but she said nothing more. Aaliyah noted the power dynamic with interest. Min-ho ruled this family absolutely, but the resentment simmering beneath the surface was palpable. They feared him, perhaps respected him, but several, especially Haewon, clearly hated being controlled. "Grandfather," Woo-sok tried again, his voice pleading now. "I don't understand. Why would you—" "Do you love her?" Min-ho interrupted, his gaze sharp on his grandson. Woo-sok blinked. "What?" "Simple question. Do you love Aaliyah?" The room held its breath. Aaliyah kept her expression neutral, though inside her stomach twisted. She'd told herself she didn't care about his answer. She'd moved past him. This was business now, but still, she wanted to know. Woo-sok glanced at his mother, then back to Min-ho. "I cared for her, very much, but the family, Min-ho said coldly. This was business now, but still, she wanted to know. Woo-sok glanced at his mother, then back to Min-ho. "I cared for her, very much, but the family, Min-ho said coldly, is not your heart, so let me rephrase. Did you love her enough to fight for her?" Silence. "That's what I thought." Min-ho lifted his water glass in a mock toast. "Then you have no grounds for complaint. I've married a remarkable woman who was foolish enough to waste time on a man who didn't deserve her. I consider that excellent fortune." Aaliyah felt something crack inside her chest, not from pain, but from the unexpected validation. She'd spent 8 months with Woo-sok, and never once had he defended her with such conviction. Never once had he claimed her so publicly, so absolutely. And now his grandfather was doing it, a man she barely knew. A man 40 years her senior. The irony was almost poetic. "I'd like to propose a toast," came a new voice. Min-ho's daughter, Jung Mi-soon, raised her glass with a slight smile. "To unexpected happiness, may it surprise us all." The comment could be read multiple ways, supportive or sarcastic, but Mi-soon's expression seemed genuine. Around the table, glasses reluctantly rose. Woo-sok didn't move. Haewon looked like she might combust. "To unexpected happiness," Min-ho echoed, his eyes finding Aaliyah's. She lifted her glass, meeting his gaze. "To new beginnings." They drank. The meal proceeded with excruciating awkwardness. Conversation started and died. Pointed questions were asked. "Where did you two even meet?" At family dinners, obvious implications. "How long has this been going on?" "It hasn't." Min-ho shut that down immediately. "What will people say?" "Who cares?" was the clear subtext of his response. Aaliyah participated minimally, letting Min-ho handle the bulk of the family's interrogation. She was here to be seen, to establish presence, not to justify herself. She ate her food with perfect manners, contributed brief comments when directly addressed, and otherwise observed. She noted who seemed genuinely curious versus hostile. Mi-soon appeared more intrigued than angry. A younger cousin, Dae-hyun, kept sneaking impressed glances at her, as if he appreciated the audacity of the situation. Two of the executives looked uncomfortable but accepting. They followed Min-ho's lead regardless of personal feelings. But Haewon and Woo-sok radiated hostility. And that, Aaliyah realized, was exactly what Min-ho had wanted. This dinner wasn't really about introducing her. It was about drawing battle lines, forcing reactions, seeing who would adapt and who would rebel. It was a test for everyone. "Aaliyah," Mi-soon said during a lull in conversation, "I heard you run a marketing firm. What industries do you specialize in?" Finally, a question she could answer properly. "Tech startups, primarily. I help new companies build brand identity and market positioning. I've worked with 12 startups in the past 3 years. 8 of them successfully scaled or got acquired." "Impressive." Mi-soon's interest seemed genuine. "Are you taking new clients?" "Selectively. Would you consider consulting for one of our subsidiary companies? We recently acquired a sustainable fashion brand that needs rebranding. The current team is struggling with reaching younger demographics." Aaliyah kept her surprise in check. This was an olive branch, or possibly a test. "I'd be interested in learning more." "Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the details." Mi-soon smiled. "Welcome to the family, Aaliyah. I suspect you'll make things much more interesting." "That's one word for it," Haewon muttered, not quite under her breath. "Haewon." Min-ho's voice was quiet but carried unmistakable warning. "If you have something to say it clearly." Haewon's jaw clenched, but she met her father's gaze. "This is a mistake. She's too young, too different, too black," Aaliyah interjected smoothly, deciding to stop letting others speak around her. "Is that what you can't quite bring yourself to say?" The table went deathly silent. Haewon's face paled, then flushed. "I didn't." "You did. You've been thinking it since I walked in." Aaliyah set down her fork with deliberate care. "Let me make something clear, Mrs. Jung. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm not here to fit into whatever narrow definition of acceptable you've constructed. I'm here because your father chose me, and I chose him back. If that bothers you, that's your problem to solve, not mine." Min-ho's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. A silent message. "Well done." "You have a lot of audacity," Haewon said, her voice shaking with rage. "I have exactly as much audacity as the situation requires." Aaliyah squeezed Min-ho's hand back, drawing strength from the contact. "Your son rejected me this morning because he was too afraid to stand up to you. I'm not making that mistake. I respect your position in this family. But I won't be disrespected in return." "Grandfather," Woo-sok interjected desperately, "this isn't right. You can't just—" "I can," Min-ho said flatly. "I have, and I will continue to do so. This discussion is over. Aaliyah is my wife. She will be treated with the respect that position demands. Anyone who cannot manage that may excuse themselves from family gatherings going forward." The ultimatum hung in the air, crystal clear. Accept her or lose access to Min-ho, and by extension, the power and wealth he controlled. One by one, eyes dropped to plates. Conversations resumed, forced and stilted. Aaliyah released the breath she'd been holding. Her heart pounded, adrenaline singing through her veins. But she'd done it. She'd claimed her space, established boundaries, refused to shrink. The rest of the dinner passed in relative calm. When it finally ended, Min-ho guided her out of the restaurant with the same proprietary hand at her back. In the car, she finally allowed herself to slump slightly. "That was brutal," Min-ho finished, "but necessary. You handled yourself perfectly. I probably made enemies tonight. You already had enemies tonight. You simply refused to pretend otherwise." He turned to her, his expression serious. "I meant what I said in there. You don't have to tolerate disrespect. Not from them, not from anyone." Aaliyah studied his face in the passing streetlights. "Why does this matter so much to you, really?" Min-ho was quiet for a long moment. "Because I've spent 68 years watching people bend themselves into shapes that pleased others. My wife, my daughter, my grandson, all of them performing versions of themselves that fit expectations. It's exhausting to witness, and it's a waste. And I don't do that? You negotiate, he said simply. You adapt strategically, not desperately. There's a difference. He looked out the window. I told you last night, you're interesting. After 8 decades of the same patterns, the same games, interesting is invaluable. The car pulled up to the penthouse. They rode the private elevator in comfortable silence, and Aaliyah found herself genuinely tired, the emotional toll of the day catching up. At the threshold where their wings diverged, Minho paused. Same time tomorrow? Coffee? Review how things went? She had almost forgotten their agreement about monthly meetings, except he was proposing daily check-ins. The consideration surprised her. Yes, that works. Good night, Aaliyah. Good night, Minho. She retreated to her wing, closed the door, and finally allowed herself to process everything. She'd done it, survived the first public appearance, claimed her position, refused to be dismissed. Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. That was quite the performance, Miss Miller, but performance is all it is. You won't last. A friend. Aaliyah stared at the message, her pulse quickening. A threat. From someone at that dinner, presumably? Or someone connected to them? She should tell Minho. Tomorrow, at their meeting. For tonight, she screenshotted the message, then blocked the number. She'd learned in business that threats came with territory. The key was not to react with fear, but with strategy. She showered, changed, and climbed into the enormous bed in her new suite. The sheets were high thread count luxury, the room temperature perfect, the city lights creating a gentle glow through the windows. This was her life now, for a year at minimum. And despite everything, the chaos, the hostility, the uncertainty, she felt something she hadn't expected. She felt powerful. Hey everyone watching from around the world, drop a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from. I love hearing from you all. And if you're enjoying Aaliyah's story so far, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Love and Tension for more incredible stories like this one. 3 days into the marriage, Aaliyah established her routine. Morning coffee in the shared kitchen at 7, where Minho was always already waiting with 2 cups prepared, one black for him, one with cream and sugar for her. Brief conversation about the day's plans, then separate paths until evening when they'd reconvene to share a meal and discuss family dynamics, business opportunities, or nothing at all. It was surprisingly comfortable, disturbingly so. She was working from her home office. The East Wing had a beautiful study with natural light and a view of the Han River, when Minho knocked on her open door. "Do you have a moment?" Aaliyah saved her document and swiveled her chair. "Of course." He entered, carrying a leather-bound book that looked ancient. The cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age. "I need to show you something. It's complicated." That was unlike him. Minho typically delivered information with confidence, never hesitation. Aaliyah gestured to the sitting area in her office. They settled across from each other, the book between them on the coffee table. "My family has a history of following certain traditions. Some cultural, some more specific to the Jung lineage." He opened the book to a marked page, revealing handwritten text in classical Korean, alongside what appeared to be a rough translation in English. "This is a family record, maintained for 7 generations. Aaliyah leaned forward, examining the text. The English translation was sparse, but she could make out phrases. The 7th son's son, foreign woman, the breaking of chains. "I don't understand," she said. "In 1847, a Buddhist monk stayed at my ancestor's estate. The monk made a prophecy that 7 generations hence, the family's heir would reject a foreign woman, and this rejection would lead to the family's transformation. If the rejection stood, the family would decline within 3 generations. If it was corrected, the family would prosper but change fundamentally." Aaliyah sat back, processing. "You're telling me there's a prophecy about me? Not you specifically. A foreign woman rejected by the heir." Minho's expression was unreadable. "Woosak is the 7th generation. He rejected you. I married you. And you believe this prophecy?" "I believe," Minho said carefully, "that patterns exist, that history echoes. I don't know if I believe in mystical prediction, but I believe in symbolism, in meaning-making. He closed the book. My family needs change, has needed it for decades. We've been stagnant, rotting from inside with the same prejudices, the same rigid thinking. Whether the prophecy is real or not, you represent disruption, possibility. Aaliyah's mind raced. This added a layer she hadn't anticipated. Does anyone else know about this? My ex-wife, Sun Hee. She's the one who researched our family history extensively. She mentioned it to me 20 years ago, but I dismissed it as superstition. He paused. Then I met you at those family dinners, watched how my grandson looked at you, saw the life you brought into our rigid formality, and when he texted you that rejection, you remembered the prophecy. I remembered that change comes from unexpected places and that sometimes the universe provides opportunities if you're paying attention. Minho's gaze was intense. I'm not a superstitious man, Aaliyah, but I'm a strategic one. If a prophecy gives me cover to do what needed doing anyway, I'll use it. What needed doing? Shaking this family out of complacency, forcing them to confront their biases, bringing in someone who doesn't owe them deference or history. He smiled slightly. Someone who negotiates. Aaliyah processed this information, turning it over in her mind. A prophecy about disruption and transformation. Whether real or convenient fiction, it gave their marriage a narrative, a mythology. Does Woo-sok know about this? Not yet, but he will. Sun Hee will tell him. She's probably already hinting at it. She finds these things fascinating. Minho leaned back. I wanted you to hear it from me first, before the family uses it as a weapon or a shield. How would they use it? Hae-won will claim I'm manipulating superstition to justify inappropriate decisions. Mi-sun might see it as romantic destiny. Woo-sok, Minho trailed off, his expression darkening. Woo-sok might realize what he gave up. The subtext was clear. Minho had married her partly to wake his grandson up, to show him the cost of cowardice. And now with a prophecy added to the mix, the psychological warfare would intensify. I'm not a chess piece, Aaliyah said quietly but firmly. I agreed to this marriage for my own reasons. If you're using me for some larger family game, you are absolutely a chess piece, Minho interrupted, but his tone wasn't unkind. But so am I, so is everyone in this family. The question isn't whether we're pieces on the board, it's whether we're conscious of the game being played. He met her eyes. I'm telling you about the prophecy because I won't have you blindsided. You deserve to know the full landscape. That, Aaliyah had to admit, was fair, and it was more honesty than Woo-sok had ever given her. All right, I'll be ready when they bring it up. Good. Minho stood, picking up the book. One more thing. Sun Hee wants to meet with you, privately. She called this morning. Your ex-wife wants to meet me? She's curious about you, and she's the most powerful person in this family besides me. If you want allies, she's the one to cultivate. He paused at the door. I can be there if you prefer, but I think she wants to assess you independently. Aaliyah considered. Meeting the ex-wife alone was risky, but refusing might seem weak. I'll meet with her. When? Tomorrow, if you're available. Tea at her home. I'll be there. After Minho left, Aaliyah sat in silence, staring at the Han River without really seeing it. A prophecy, a family transformation, her role as a catalyst, willing or not. She thought about her grandmother in Atlanta, who'd believed in signs and symbols, who'd read tarot cards and claimed to sense things before they happened. Aaliyah had always been skeptical, grounded in data and strategy rather than mysticism, but here she was, living inside someone else's prophetic narrative. The question was, would she let that narrative define her, or would she write her own story within it? Her phone buzzed. A message from Mi-sun. Heard grandfather told you about the prophecy. Welcome to the weird side of the Jung family. Coffee sometime? I promise I'm not as intense as the others. Mi-sun. Aaliyah smiled despite herself. Allies emerging from unexpected places. She typed back, Coffee sounds perfect, thank you. Within seconds. Tomorrow after your tea with Mom, I'll pick you up. We have much to discuss. So Mi-sun knew about the Sun Hee meeting. Of course she did. Information traveled fast in this family. Aaliyah set her phone aside and returned to work. but her mind kept circling back to the prophecy, to the idea that she'd been predicted, expected, woven into some larger pattern. She didn't believe in fate, but she believed in leverage, and if this family thought she was part of some mystical destiny, she'd use that belief to carve out the space she needed. After all, prophecies were just stories, and Aaliyah Miller had always been good at telling stories. That evening, over dinner, she brought up something that had been bothering her. "Minho, that threat I received after the family dinner, have there been any others?" He looked up from his food, expression sharpening. "What threat?" She retrieved her phone and showed him the screenshot. He read it, his jaw tightening. "You should have told me immediately," he said, his voice controlled but cold. "I wanted to see if it was an isolated incident or the start of a pattern." Aaliyah met his gaze. "It's been 3 days, nothing else. So either they gave up, or they're planning something bigger, or they're watching to see how you react." Minho handed back her phone. "I'll have security increased, and I'll have my people trace the number. I already tried. Burner phone likely. My people have more resources than standard phone tracing." He pulled out his own phone, typing rapidly. "This is unacceptable. You are under my protection now. Threats against you are threats against me." The possessiveness in his voice should have irritated her. Instead, she found it reassuring. For so long with Woo-Sok, she'd felt like she was fighting her own battles alone, even within the relationship. Minho's immediate, fierce response was different. "Thank you," she said simply. He looked at her, something softening in his features. "You don't have to thank me for basic protection, Aaliyah. I've learned not to take it for granted." They held each other's gaze for a moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Minho cleared his throat and returned to his meal. "Sun Hee will ask you about your intentions tomorrow. She'll want to know if you're playing me, using me, or genuinely open to whatever this becomes. And what should I tell her? The truth. She'll spot a lie immediately." He took a sip of wine. "Sun Hee and I divorced amicably 20 years ago. We married young, built the empire together, then realized we'd become business partners rather than spouses. We're still friends, genuinely. She'll be fair to you if you're honest with her. What ended your marriage, if you don't mind me asking?" Minho was quiet for a moment. "We forgot to evolve together, built everything side by side, but never looked at each other. One day we woke up and realized we were strangers who shared a bank account." He smiled sadly. "I don't want that to happen again, even in a contracted arrangement. I'd rather know you as a person than as a performance." The vulnerability in that admission struck Aaliyah. She'd been so focused on surviving this family, on protecting herself, that she hadn't considered Minho might have his own wounds, his own lessons learned. "I'll be honest with her," Aaliyah promised. "And with you, that's the deal we made." "Good." He raised his glass. "To honesty." "To honesty," she echoed, clinking her glass against his. As they finished dinner and retreated to separate wings, Aaliyah found herself thinking about prophecies and patterns, about second chances and unexpected partnerships. She'd entered this marriage as a strategy, a way to reclaim dignity, build connections, survive rejection. But maybe, just maybe, it was becoming something else, something she didn't have a name for yet. Something that both excited and terrified her. She fell asleep that night with the city glowing beyond her windows, dreams full of ancient monks and family secrets, of chess pieces that became queens. Tomorrow she'd face Minho's ex-wife, another test, another challenge, but tonight, for the first time since Woo-Sok's text message, Aaliyah Miller felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Sun Hee's home was traditional Korean architecture meeting modern luxury, a Hanok-style estate in Bukchon, where preserved traditional houses stood alongside contemporary renovations. Aaliyah arrived precisely on time, dressed in elegant casual, cream slacks, a silk blouse, minimal jewelry, respectful but not deferential. The housekeeper led her to an inner courtyard where Sun Hee waited at a low table, tea already prepared. The older woman was striking, 70 years old, but carrying herself with the grace of someone who'd never doubted her place in the world. Silver hair in an elegant knot, traditional hanbok in deep blue, and eyes that missed absolutely nothing. Aaliyah Miller Young, Sun Hee said, gesturing to the cushion across from her. Please, sit. Aaliyah lowered herself gracefully, grateful for the yoga flexibility that made floor sitting manageable. Thank you for inviting me, Mrs. Young. Sun Hee, please. We're family now. She poured tea with practiced precision, though I suspect you don't feel much like family yet. I'm adjusting, Aaliyah said honestly. I'm sure. Sun Hee studied her over the rim of her cup. You're different than I expected. Min Ho's taste typically runs toward conventional beauty. You're far more interesting. Aaliyah wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not. Thank you? Sun Hee laughed, a genuine sound. It's absolutely a compliment. Conventional is boring. I should know. I spent 40 years being exactly what was expected. She set down her cup. Tell me, what do you know about the prophecy? What Min Ho told me yesterday, a seventh-generation heir, a foreign woman, rejection and correction, transformation or decline. And do you believe it? Aaliyah considered her answer carefully. I believe that people find meaning in patterns. Whether the prophecy itself is mystically true or just human pattern recognition doesn't matter as much as what people do with that belief. Sun Hee's eyes sparkled with approval. Very diplomatic. Also, very intelligent. Let me ask differently. Do you believe Min Ho married you because of the prophecy? No. Aaliyah's response was immediate. He married me because I negotiated, because I didn't cry or beg or perform gratitude. The prophecy gave him a framework to justify a decision he wanted to make anyway. Excellent analysis. Sun Hee refilled both their cups. My ex-husband is many things. Brilliant, ruthless, surprisingly sentimental, but he's not ruled by superstition. He saw an opportunity and took it. The prophecy is a useful narrative for the family, nothing more. Then why bring me here to discuss it? Because others will use it differently. Hye-won will use it to paint you as a manipulator who seduced an old man with mystical nonsense. Woo-sok will use it to absolve himself of responsibility. If the prophecy was real, then he was fated to reject you, not truly choosing to. Dae-hyun and the younger cousins will romanticize it. Sun Hee leaned forward slightly. You need to control the narrative before it controls you. This was a test, Aaliyah realized, not of her character, but of her strategic thinking. How would you suggest I do that? Own it, Sun Hee said immediately. Don't deny the prophecy exists, but frame it your way. You're not a passive mystical fulfillment. You're an agent of necessary change. The prophecy predicted disruption. You deliver it consciously. That's power, not fate. Aaliyah absorbed this, impressed despite herself. You've thought a lot about this. I've studied young family history for decades. The monk who made it was likely just a perceptive observer, not a mystic. He saw patterns. Families that became insular declined. Families that embraced change thrived. He dressed observation in mysticism to make it memorable. Sun Hee smiled. You represent change. Whether the stars aligned or Min Ho made a shrewd choice, the result is the same. And you support this change? Enthusiastically. Sun Hee's expression grew serious. This family has been eating itself alive for 2 generations. Hye-won's bigotry, Woo-sok's weakness, the rigid adherence to tradition that stifles growth, it's all poison. Min Ho knows this. I know this. And now you're here to force the issue. That's a lot of pressure, Aaliyah admitted. Yes, but you're equipped for it. You built a business in a foreign country. You survived rejection and turned it into strategy within hours. You stood up to Hye-won at your first family dinner without flinching. Sun Hee reached across the table, placing her hand over Aaliyah's. You're stronger than you know, and that strength will carry you through what's coming. What is coming? Sun Hee withdrew her hand. her expression darkening. Resistance. Hye-won won't accept you easily. She's already calling family friends, trying to build a coalition. She'll look for ways to discredit you, embarrass you, force Min-ho to choose you and family stability. He'll choose me, Aaliyah said with more confidence than she felt. He will, but the cost will be high. Family fractures, business complications, social scandal. Soon-hee poured more tea. The question is whether you're prepared for that cost, whether this year-long arrangement is worth the battle. Aaliyah thought about the threatening text, about Woo-sok's pale face at the dinner, about Min-ho's quiet support and daily coffee ritual, about the opportunity Mi-sun had offered, about the prophecy and the narrative and the possibility of transformation, not just for the family, but for herself. "I'm prepared," she said firmly. "I didn't survive rejection and humiliation just to back down from resistance. If Hye-won wants a war, she'll get one, but I'll fight smart, not angry." Soon-hee's smile was proud. "Good. Then let me give you ammunition." She produced a tablet from beside her cushion, pulling up a series of documents. Hye-won's company, the one she manages independently, has been losing money for 3 years. She's been hiding it through creative accounting. Min-ho knows, but he's allowed it because family loyalty. However, if she comes after you too aggressively, this information becomes relevant. Aaliyah scanned the documents, her marketing mind immediately seeing the issues. Poor market positioning, outdated branding, executive bloat. She's vulnerable. Very, and she knows it, which makes her desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Soon-hee closed the tablet. "I'm not suggesting you weaponize this immediately, but know it exists. Know where her weaknesses are." "Why are you helping me?" Aaliyah asked directly. "You don't owe me anything. You barely know me." Soon-hee was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the courtyard garden. "Because 45 years ago, I was a young woman marrying into a powerful family. I was conventional enough to be acceptable, but I still faced resistance. Whispers about my family's lower status, concerns about my education, doubts about my worthiness." She turned back to Aaliyah. "No one helped me navigate it. No one warned me or armed me. I survived, but I remember how alone I felt." The vulnerability in that admission touched Aaliyah deeply. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the information and the honesty." "You're welcome." Soon-hee stood, and Aaliyah rose with her. "One more thing. Min-ho cares about you." Aaliyah blinked in surprise. "We've been married 3 days. I know my ex-husband. I know his patterns, his tells, the way he talks about you. It's not contract language. It's not even friendly partnership." Soon-hee smiled knowingly. "He's intrigued, and for a man who spent decades bored by everything, intrigue is the first step towards something deeper. We have a year-long arrangement with clear boundaries," Aaliyah protested, but her heart rate picked up. Arrangements change, boundaries blur. People surprise themselves. Soon-hee walked with her toward the courtyard entrance. "I'm not saying you need to fall in love with him. I'm saying don't be surprised if genuine affection develops, and don't fight it just because it wasn't part of the original plan." They reached the entrance where Aaliyah's car waited. Before leaving, Aaliyah turned back. "Soon-hee, can I ask why you and Min-ho divorced if you're still clearly close?" "Because we loved each other, but we weren't in love anymore, and we both wanted different things for our final decades." Soon-hee's expression softened with affection. "I wanted peace, art, philosophy. He wanted continued engagement, strategy, building. We gave each other permission to find those things separately." She paused. "You give him engagement, challenge, possibility. Don't underestimate the value of that." As Aaliyah drove away from the Hanak estate, she processed everything. The prophecy narrative she could control, the information about Hye-won's vulnerability, Soon-hee's warning about developing feelings. That last part unsettled her most. She'd entered this marriage with clear emotional boundaries. Min-ho was a means to an end, a strategic partnership. The idea that she might actually develop feelings for him, genuine care beyond respect and gratitude, was something she hadn't prepared for. Her phone rang. Mi-sun. "How did it go with Mom?" Mi-sun asked immediately. Intense, informative, slightly terrifying. Mi-sun laughed. "That's Mom. She likes you, by the way. She texted me. Said you're adequately strategic and pleasantly honest, which is high praise from her." "I'll take it." Aaliyah navigated traffic, putting the call on speaker. "Where should I meet you for coffee?" "I'm actually at your building. Figured we could have coffee at your place, more private for the conversation we need to have." Aaliyah's curiosity spiked. "What conversation?" "The one about how to survive being a Jung family woman without losing yourself in the process." Mi-sun's tone was light, but Aaliyah heard the underlying seriousness. "I've got 20 years of experience. Time to share the wisdom." 20 minutes later, they were settled in Aaliyah's East Wing living room, coffee brewing, city view sprawling before them. Mi-sun was 52. Elegant in that effortless way wealthy Korean women achieved, but with laugh lines and an openness that suggested she hadn't completely sacrificed personality to propriety. "First rule," Mi-sun said, accepting her coffee cup, "never believe you're one of them. You're not. You're adjacent, married in, tolerated, or accepted, but never fully internal. Once you accept that, you stop trying to belong and start building your own power base." "That's remarkably cynical," Aaliyah observed. "It's remarkably realistic. I was born into this family, and I still feel like an outsider half the time because I didn't conform enough." Mi-sun sipped her coffee. "You, as a Black American woman married to the patriarch, will never be fully accepted by the conservative faction, so stop trying. Focus on the people who are open to you. Me, Dae-hyun, some of the younger cousins, even Mom in her way. What about Min-ho? Dad is different. He doesn't just accept you, he chose you. That's powerful. But it also makes you a target for anyone who resents his authority." Mi-sun set down her cup. "Which brings me to Woo-sok." Aaliyah tensed. "What about him?" "He's spiraling. Called me yesterday, rambling about how grandfather was punishing him, how this was all about controlling the family, how you probably seduced his way into this marriage for money." Mi-sun's expression was apologetic. "I told him he was being an idiot, but he's not listening. He's hurt and humiliated, and that makes him unpredictable. Do you think he'll do something?" "I think he'll try. Whether he succeeds depends on how well you protect yourself." Mi-sun pulled out her phone, pulling up photos. These were taken 2 days ago. Woo-sok meeting with his mother and 3 of her allies. They're planning something. The photos showed exactly what Mi-sun described: a private restaurant, intense conversation, documents on the table. Aaliyah studied them, her strategic mind analyzing possibilities. What could they do? Min-ho has made his position clear. They could try to prove the marriage is fraudulent, find evidence you and Dad aren't really together, that it's just for show. Korean marriage law requires cohabitation and genuine intent. If they can prove it's purely contractual, they might be able to get it annulled. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. She and Min-ho did live separately within the penthouse. They had clear boundaries. The contract she'd negotiated explicitly stated public marriage, private rules. "Shit," she muttered. "Exactly." Mi-sun leaned forward. "You need to actually build the relationship with Dad. Not necessarily romantic, but genuine. Shared activities, time together, evidence of partnership. Right now you're too separate. It looks exactly like what it is, a strategic arrangement. But it is a strategic arrangement. Then make it look like something that evolved beyond that. Go to dinner together publicly, attend his business events, be seen together doing normal couple things." Mi-sun's expression was earnest. "I know that wasn't the deal, but if you want to survive the year, the deal needs to adapt." Aaliyah processed this, frustrated but understanding the logic. "Does Min-ho know they're planning this?" "I told him this morning. He's taking steps on the legal side, but he agrees that the best defense is demonstrating genuine partnership." Mi-sun smiled gently. "Which honestly won't be that hard. You two actually like each other. I can see it. We barely know each other. You know each other enough to have honest conversations over morning coffee, enough to discuss strategy without ego, enough to laugh together. I heard you two last night comparing notes about the family dinner. Mi-san stood, preparing to leave. That's more than a lot of married couples have after decades. After Mi-san left, Aaliyah sat alone with her coffee, staring at the city below. The parameters were changing. She'd need to talk to Minho, renegotiate their arrangement in light of this new threat. But Mi-san was right about one thing. They did actually like each other. The morning coffee ritual had become something she looked forward to. His dry humor and sharp observations made her laugh. His respect for her intelligence and his refusal to patronize her was refreshing after Woo-Sok's subtle condescension. Maybe evolving the arrangement wouldn't be a hardship. Maybe it would even be enjoyable. Her phone buzzed. Minho, Mi-san talked to you about Woo-Sok's plans? Aaliyah, yes, we should discuss. Minho, dinner tonight? Public restaurant. Start establishing visible patterns. A pause, then. Unless you're uncomfortable with that. Aaliyah smiled at the consideration, the way he always gave her the choice. She typed back, dinner sounds perfect, but I get to pick the restaurant. You always choose Korean. Tonight we're trying that new fusion place in Gangnam. Minho, deal. 7 p.m.? Aaliyah, it's a date. She paused, then added, strategic date, obviously. Minho, obviously. But the laughing emoji he included suggested he found her clarification amusing. Aaliyah set down her phone, a strange flutter in her chest. This was still strategy, still self-protection, still about surviving the year and claiming her dignity. But maybe, just maybe, it was also becoming something neither of them had planned for, something that felt dangerously close to genuine connection, and that terrified her more than any family threat ever could. The restaurant was everything Aaliyah had hoped for. Elegant without being stuffy, a fusion of Korean and international cuisine, modern decor with traditional touches, the kind of place that would photograph well on society blogs, which was partly the point. Minho arrived exactly on time, dressed impeccably in a charcoal suit that somehow made him look 10 years younger. He greeted her with a slight bow, formal in public spaces, as expected, but the warmth in his eyes was genuine. You look beautiful, he said, and the compliment felt earned rather than obligatory. Aaliyah had chosen a deep burgundy dress that showcased her curves while maintaining sophistication. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant twist, and she wore the pearl earrings Minho had given her as a wedding gift, a thoughtful touch she hoped observers would notice. Thank you. You clean up well yourself. She smiled, and he offered his arm as they were led to their table, a semi-private booth visible enough to be seen, but secluded enough for conversation. Throughout the meal, they played their parts perfectly, leaning in during conversation, sharing food from each other's plates, laughing at shared jokes. To any observer, they looked like a couple genuinely enjoying each other's company. The remarkable thing was, they were. This squid ink pasta is incredible, Minho said, offering her a forkful. You were right about this place. Aaliyah accepted the bite, making a show of savoring it. I have excellent taste in restaurants. And husbands, apparently. He laughed, that genuine, surprised laugh she was learning to elicit. Strategic husbands. The best kind. She sipped her wine, then grew more serious. We need to talk about Woo-Sok's plans. I know. Minho's expression darkened. I've already spoken with my lawyers. The marriage is legal and binding. But Mi-san is right. Demonstrating genuine partnership strengthens our position significantly. So this, Aaliyah gestured between them, needs to become more regular. It does, which means adjusting our arrangement. He set down his fork, giving her his full attention. I won't force anything on you, Aaliyah, but I need to know your comfort level. Public dates like this, attending events together, being photographed together. I'm comfortable with all of that. She paused, considering. What about physical affection, in public? What would you prefer? Aaliyah thought about it. Hand-holding seems natural. Your hand on my back when we walk. You already do that. Maybe dancing, if we attend formal events. And more than that? She met his eyes directly. A kiss on the cheek in greeting or goodbye, nothing more intimate unless the situation absolutely demands it for appearance's sake and only with prior agreement. That's fair, Minho nodded. I'll follow your lead. If you initiate, I'll reciprocate. I won't push boundaries. The respect in that statement, the way he centered her comfort, made Aaliyah's chest warm. Thank you. They continued eating, the conversation flowing naturally. Minho told her about a difficult business negotiation from earlier today, actually asking for her perspective on the positioning. Aaliyah found herself genuinely engaged, offering marketing insights that he considered seriously. You should sit in on some of my strategy meetings. Your perspective would be valuable, and it would further establish you as a genuine partner, not just a wife. I'd like that. Aaliyah hesitated, then decided to push forward. Minho, can I ask you something personal? Always. Do you ever regret this? The marriage, the complexity, the family drama? He was quiet for a long moment, considering. No, I regret that you were hurt by my grandson's cowardice. I regret that you're facing threats and judgment. But I don't regret marrying you. He reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers in question. She bridged the distance, allowing him to take her hand. You've made these past few days more interesting than the past 5 years combined. That's worth the complexity, even if it costs you family relationships. The family relationships that would be cost are ones I'd happily sacrifice. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, a gentle, almost unconscious gesture. Haewon's approval has never mattered to me. Woo-Sok's respect is something he needs to earn back. The people whose opinions I value, Sun-hee, Mi-sun, a few key executives, they support this. And what if I walk away at the end of the year? Aaliyah asked quietly. What if we do all this, build this public partnership, and then I still leave? Minho squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. Then you leave with my blessing and everything I promised. The arrangement stands regardless of outcome. I'm not holding you hostage to success, Aaliyah. The sincerity in his voice, the absolute conviction that he'd honor his word, broke down another of her carefully constructed walls. I'm starting to like you, she admitted. Actually like you, not just respect or appreciate. That wasn't part of the plan. He smiled, genuine and warm. I've liked you since you negotiated that first night instead of crying. Now I'm simply discovering how much. They finished their meal in comfortable conversation, and when they left, Minho's hand at the small of her back felt natural rather than performative. Photographers were waiting outside. Someone had tipped them off, probably Mi-sun being strategic, and they navigated the brief photo opportunity with practiced ease. In the car, Minho checked his phone and frowned. Woo-Sok is texting. He wants to meet, says he needs to explain himself. Do you want to see him? No. But perhaps you should. Aaliyah turned to him in surprise. Why would I do that? Because he's my grandson, and eventually we need to address the elephant in the room. Because you might have things you need to say to him. Because closure, even confrontational closure, might be valuable. Minho met her eyes. I'll be with you. It will be in our home, on our terms, but I think it might help. Aaliyah processed this. Part of her wanted to refuse. Woo-Sok didn't deserve her time or energy, but another part recognized Minho's wisdom. Unresolved tension would fester. Better to face it directly. All right, but I control the conversation. If he becomes disrespectful or tries to manipulate, we end it immediately. Agreed. Minho texted back, arranging for Woo-Sok to visit the following evening. When they arrived at the penthouse, Minho walked her to her wing entrance, something he'd started doing the past few nights, a small gesture of care that felt significant. Thank you for tonight, he said, for being willing to adapt the arrangement, for the conversation, for everything. Thank you for respecting my boundaries, for asking rather than assuming. Aaliyah found herself stepping closer, rising on her toes to press a brief kiss to his cheek. Good night, Minho. He touched the spot where her lips had been, his eyes warm. Good night, Leah. She retreated to her wing, closed the door and leaned against it, heart racing. That kiss, innocent as it was, had sparked something, a warmth that spread through her chest, a flutter of possibility. She was in dangerous territory. Feelings were developing that went beyond strategy or gratitude, genuine affection, attraction even, not just to his power or position, but to him as a person. Her phone buzzed. A text from Simone in Atlanta. "Girl, these photos of you and your new husband are all over Korean society blogs. He's looking at you like you hung the moon. What's the real story there?" Aaliyah stared at the message, then pulled up the photos from tonight. Simone was right. In several shots, Minho was gazing at her with unmistakable warmth, and she was looking back with something that definitely wasn't strategic performance. She typed back, "It's complicated. I'll call you tomorrow." Simone, "You better. I need all the tea. And girl, that man is fine for almost 70. I see you." Despite everything, Aaliyah laughed. Trust Simone to cut through the complexity with blunt observation. She prepared for bed, but sleep evaded her. Tomorrow she'd face Woozock, see the man who'd rejected her, who'd chosen comfort over courage. Part of her dreaded it, but another part welcomed the opportunity to demonstrate exactly how much she'd devolved beyond him. She was no longer the woman who'd received that text message with devastation. She was Mrs. Jung Min-ho, a woman building her own power base, cultivating strategic relationships, and, surprisingly, finding genuine connection where she least expected it. The prophecy, if it was real, had predicted transformation. Well, transformation is certainly happening, just not the way anyone expected. Woozock arrived at 7 the next evening, visibly nervous. Aaliyah watched him enter the penthouse from her position in the living room, Min-ho beside her on the sofa, a united front. Woozock looked thinner than she remembered, shadows under his eyes, his usually perfect style slightly disheveled. Good. Let him suffer a little. "Grandfather," Woozock began, bowing formally. Then to Aaliyah, a stilted, Aaliyah." Her voice was neutral, offering no warmth but no hostility either. Min-ho gestured to the chair across from them. "Sit. You wanted to talk, so talk." Woozock sat, his hands fidgeting. He looked between them, clearly struggling where to begin. This is harder than I thought." "Most courageous acts are," Min-ho said dryly. "I want to apologize," Woozock said, focusing on Aaliyah. "The way I ended things, the text message, the cowardice, it was unforgivable." "You deserved better." "Yes, I did." Aaliyah kept her tone even, refusing to make this easy for him. "But you already knew that when you sent it. So what's changed? Why apologize now?" "Because I've had time to think, to see what I gave up." His eyes flickered to Min-ho, then back to her. "And because I need you to know it wasn't about you. You are incredible. The failure was mine." "I know it was your failure," Aaliyah said calmly. "I've never questioned my own worth, but I appreciate the clarification." Woozock winced at the directness. "My mother, she's very traditional. She has specific ideas about family, about race." Aaliyah interrupted. "Let's not dance around it. She didn't want a black daughter-in-law. She applied pressure, you caved. That's the story. It's not that simple. It absolutely is that simple." Min-ho's voice cut through like ice. "You had a choice. Stand with the woman you claimed to love or submit to your mother's bigotry. You chose submission. Don't insult us both by pretending it was complex." Woozock's face flushed red. "You don't understand what it's like having to balance." "I understand perfectly," Min-ho said. "I've spent decades balancing family politics. The difference is I never sacrificed my principles doing it. You did." Silence fell, heavy and uncomfortable. Aaliyah studied Woozock, this man she'd once loved, or thought she loved. Had it been genuine love, or had she been in love with the idea of him, the international romance, the cultural bridge, the fairy tale? Looking at him now, diminished and defensive, she realized she felt nothing. No anger, no residual affection, just a mild pity mixed with relief that she'd escaped. "Why are you really here, Woozock?" she asked quietly. "Not the apology, that's for your conscience. What do you actually want?" He swallowed hard. I want to know if there's any chance, if this marriage to grandfather is what I think it is, if after the year, when you're free." "No." Aliyah cut him off before he could finish the pathetic question. "Whatever you're about to ask, the answer is no. There is no future for us. There never will be again. But if you're only married for a year, then after that year, I'll make my own choices, which will not include you." She leaned forward slightly. "You broke something, Woo-sok. Not my heart. That healed faster than you'd probably like to know. But you broke my ability to see you as strong, as brave, as someone worthy of my time and energy. That can't be repaired." "Aliyah, please." "She said no," Minho interjected, his voice hard. "Respect it." Woo-sok turned to his grandfather, desperation clear. "You did this to punish me, to teach me a lesson. But grandfather, please, you don't actually want to be married to her. This is just strategy. When you're done making your point—" "I married Aliyah," Minho said coldly, "because she is remarkable, because she negotiates rather than manipulates, because she stood in front of this family and refused to shrink, because in 3 days she's demonstrated more courage than you've shown in 30 years. He stood, a clear dismissal. "The lesson you were supposed to learn is that actions have consequences. Clearly, you're still struggling with that concept. You can't actually care about her." Woo-sok's voice rose, frustration breaking through. "She's too young for you, too different. This is insane." "That's enough." Aliyah stood as well, her voice sharp. "You don't get to question his choices. You lost that right when you sent that text. You lost any claim to moral authority when you let your mother's prejudice dictate your life." She moved closer to him, her posture confident. "I'm happy here, Woo-sok, genuinely happy. I have more respect, more partnership, more honesty with Minho in 1 week than I had with you in 8 months. That should tell you everything you need to know." Woo-sok looked stricken. "You can't mean that." "I absolutely mean it." She glanced at Minho, who was watching her with unmistakable pride. "Your grandfather treats me like an equal. He values my opinions, respects my boundaries, and actually fights for me when necessary. You did none of those things. So yes, I'm happy, and no, there's no future for us." The finality in her tone seemed to break through. Woo-sok slumped in his chair, the fight draining out of him. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "Yes, you did." Aliyah's voice softened slightly, not with forgiveness, but with acknowledgement of shared humanity, "and you'll have to live with that. But you don't get to drag me back into your regret. I've moved forward. I suggest you do the same." Minho stepped forward, gesturing toward the door. "This conversation is over. You're welcome to family gatherings if you can behave civilly. But you will not harass Aliyah. You will not question our marriage, and you will absolutely not come here again uninvited." Woo-sok stood shakily, bowing to his grandfather out of ingrained habit. At the door, he turned back one last time. "I hope you'll be happy, Aliyah. Truly." "I already am," she replied simply. After he left, silence filled the penthouse. Aliyah felt the adrenaline draining, leaving her slightly shaky. Minho's hand found hers immediately. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. "Yes. Actually, I'm better than all right." She turned to face him. "I thought I'd feel triumphant or vindicated, but I just feel free, like closing a chapter that needed closing." "You were magnificent," Minho said, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "The way you articulated your worth, set boundaries, refused to be diminished." He trailed off, his expression intense. "I was proud of you." The words, the look, the genuine admiration, it was too much and not enough simultaneously. Aliyah found herself stepping closer into his personal space, driven by impulse and emotion she couldn't fully name. Minho. Before she could finish, before she could second guess, she was rising on her toes and kissing him. Not the chaste cheek kiss from yesterday, but a real kiss, lips meeting, brief but unmistakable. She pulled back immediately, shocked at herself. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have—" But Minho's hand was cupping her face, gentle but sure. "Don't apologize." His eyes searched hers. "Unless you regret it." "I don't," she whispered, surprised by how true it was. "I should, but I don't." "Then don't." His thumb traced her cheekbone, the touch reverent. "We're rewriting the arrangement anyway. Might as well be honest about what's developing." "What is developing?" Aaliyah asked, her heart pounding. "I don't know yet. Something neither of us planned. Something that terrifies me, if I'm honest." His smile was self-deprecating. "I'm 68 years old, Aaliyah. I'd convinced myself I was beyond these kinds of feelings, that I'd settled into dignified old age. Then you negotiated your way into my life and turned everything sideways. I'm supposed to be using this year to build my business, establish connections, and walk away with my dignity intact," Aaliyah admitted. "Falling for you wasn't part of the strategy." "Are you? Falling?" She considered lying, retreating to safety, but they'd promised honesty. "I think I might be. Early stages, maybe, but yes, I think so." Minho pulled her into an embrace, and she melted into it, the first real hug they'd shared. His arms were strong despite his age, his hold secure but not confining. She felt his heart beating against her cheek, felt her own sinking to its rhythm. "We should be smart about this," he murmured into her hair. "Take it slow, see where it goes naturally." "We should," she agreed, "but I don't want to overthink it into nothing." "Neither do I." He pulled back slightly to look at her. "So we let it unfold, honor the original arrangement's timeline, give ourselves the year to explore this without pressure, but we're honest about feelings as they develop." "That's a good plan," Aaliyah smiled. "Very strategic of us." "We're both strategists. It's what we do." He pressed a kiss to her forehead, tender and promising. "But strategy doesn't preclude genuine feeling. Sometimes it makes space for it." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the city-lit living room, the ghost of Woosok's visit fading into irrelevance. Whatever they were building, this strange, unexpected, strategic-turned-genuine partnership, it felt right in a way Aaliyah hadn't anticipated. If you're enjoying watching Aaliyah's transformation, drop a like on this video and comment below what you think will happen next. I love reading your predictions. Don't forget to subscribe to Love and Tension for more compelling stories. When they finally separated, Minho suggested dinner. They ordered in rather than going out, wanting privacy to process the evening's events. Over Thai food and wine, they talked about everything and nothing. His early business struggles, her childhood in Atlanta, favorite books, travel wishes, regrets, and triumphs. It was the kind of conversation new couples had, learning each other's depths. Except they were married first, dating second. The backwards nature of it made them both laugh. "Most people date, fall in love, then marry," Aaliyah observed, spilling a spring roll from his plate. "We do everything backwards. It's part of our charm." Minho offered her more wine, though I'll note we technically did negotiate first, which might be the most mature approach possible. Strategic romance. It could be a new relationship model. "I'll write a book," he grinned. Chapter 1. When your grandson rejects her, marry her yourself. Aaliyah nearly choked on her wine, laughing. That is not a universal application strategy. Probably for the best. Imagine the chaos. They continued bantering, and Aaliyah realized this was happiness. Simple, uncomplicated, present-moment happiness. No performance, no calculation, just genuine enjoyment of each other's company. Later, at her wing entrance, Minho took her hand. "Thank you for today, for handling Woosok with grace, for being honest about feelings, for that kiss that nearly stopped my heart." "It was barely a kiss," Aaliyah protested, but she was smiling. It was enough. He lifted her hand, pressing his lips to her knuckles in an old-fashioned gesture that somehow felt perfect. "Good night, Aaliyah. Sleep well." Good night, Minho. In her bed that night, Aaliyah replayed the kiss, the embrace, the conversation. This was dangerous territory, falling for someone 40 years older, someone who'd married her partly as strategy, someone whose family would resist this development even more than they resisted the marriage itself. But it was also exhilarating, real, built on honesty and mutual respect rather than illusions. The prophecy talked about transformation, about the family changing fundamentally. Maybe that transformation started here, with two people brave enough to let strategy evolve into something genuine. She fell asleep smiling, dreams full of possibilities she hadn't dared imagine a week ago. Whatever came next, family resistance, social judgment, unexpected complications, she was ready because she wasn't facing it alone anymore. She had a partner, a genuine one, and that made all the difference. The next 3 weeks unfolded like a dance. Careful steps forward, occasional stumbles, but overall a rhythm that felt increasingly natural. Aaliyah and Minho established new patterns that blurred the lines between contractual arrangement and genuine relationship. Morning coffee evolved into breakfast conversations. He started joining her in the East Wing's kitchen instead of the formal dining area, cooking simple meals together. Aaliyah discovered he made excellent pancakes. Minho learned she had strong opinions about proper coffee brewing that he found both amusing and endearing. Public appearances increased. They attended gallery openings, business dinners, charity galas, always together, always presenting a united front. The gossip blogs ate it up. Chairman Jung's surprising romance, age gap love inside the Jung marriage, how Aaliyah Miller won Korea's most powerful bachelor. The headlines made them laugh, but they also served a purpose. The more visible their partnership, the harder it would be for Woo-sok and Haewon to claim fraud. Misun's consulting project became a genuine collaboration. Aaliyah dove into the sustainable fashion brand relaunch, discovering she genuinely enjoyed working with Minho's daughter. They developed mutual respect quickly. Misun for Aaliyah's sharp marketing instincts, Aaliyah for Misun's business acumen and surprising wit. "You're good for him," Misun said one afternoon as they reviewed campaign mock-ups. "Dad's laughed more in the past month than in the past year." "He's good for me too," Aaliyah admitted. "I didn't expect that." "The best things are unexpected," Misun smiled knowingly. "Just be careful. The family resistance won't end just because you two are genuinely happy. If anything, it might intensify." She was right. Haewon's hostility hadn't decreased. If anything, it had become more calculated. She'd stopped attending family gatherings where Aaliyah would be present, creating a subtle division. Some family members sided with her, others with Minho. The Jung family was fracturing, just as Sun Hee had predicted, but Minho seemed unconcerned. The fracture was already there, Minho told Aaliyah one evening as they reviewed family dynamics over wine. "I'm just forcing everyone to choose sides openly. Better honest division than poisonous unity." "Machiavellian of you," Aaliyah observed. "I prefer strategic," he smiled. Besides, the people who matter have chosen correctly. Sun Hee, Misun, Daehyun, most of the executives. Haewon can have her little coalition of bitter traditionalists. Physical affection between them increased gradually. Hand-holding became automatic. His arm around her waist at events felt natural. She started initiating casual touches, straightening his tie, brushing imaginary lint from his shoulder, leaning against him during quiet moments. The kisses remained chaste but frequent. Greeting kisses, goodbye kisses, spontaneous affection that felt less performative and more genuine each time. They hadn't discussed intimacy beyond that. The separate wings remained separate bedrooms, but the tension was building, palpable but unspoken. One night, after a particularly long business dinner where they'd fielded countless questions about their relationship, they returned to the penthouse exhausted. Aaliyah kicked off her heels with a grateful sigh, and Minho loosened his tie with practiced ease. "I need to say something," Minho announced, pouring them both whiskey. Aaliyah's stomach tightened nervously. Okay, I'm falling in love with you. He said it matter-of-factly, like a business report. I wanted you to know, no pressure, no expectation of reciprocation, just honesty, as agreed. Aaliyah took the whiskey glass with shaking hands, her heart racing. That's quite a statement. It's the truth. He sat across from her, his gaze steady. I've been married before, had relationships, experienced attraction and affection. This is different, deeper. You challenge me, make me laugh, force me to be better. You see me, not the chairman, not the patriarch, not the empire, just me, and I see you the same way. Tears pricked Aaliyah's eyes. Min-ho, you don't have to say anything. He interrupted gently. I know we started this as strategy. I know there's an age gap that society will judge. I know this is complicated, but I won't lie about my feelings. That would violate our agreement. Aaliyah set down her glass and moved to sit beside him on the couch. She took his hand, threading their fingers together. I'm falling too, she whispered. It terrifies me, but I am. This wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to use this year to rebuild, to strategize, to position myself for the future, not to fall in love with my contract husband. Min-ho cupped her face with his free hand, his touch gentle. Plans change. People surprise us, including ourselves. I'm 32, you're 68. People will say I'm using you, that you're having a midlife crisis. Late life crisis, technically, he interjected with a slight smile. Despite herself, she laughed. This is serious. I know, but their opinions don't define us. Our truth does. He leaned his forehead against hers. I'm not naive, Aaliyah. I know the challenges, the age gap, the racial dynamics, the power imbalance others will perceive, but I also know how I feel, and I know what I see when you look at me. It's genuine. That's worth fighting for. What if I still want to leave after the year? She asked quietly. What if this doesn't work long term? Then you leave, and we'll both have had something remarkable for a year. I'd rather have that than spend my remaining decades playing it safe. He kissed her forehead. But I'm hoping we'll renegotiate, extend the contract indefinitely. Aaliyah pulled back to look at him. You want a real marriage? I want whatever this becomes. If that's a real marriage, wonderful. If it's a unique partnership that doesn't fit traditional definitions, also wonderful. I just want you in my life. The details are negotiable. The pragmatism mixed with romance was so perfectly Min-ho that Aaliyah couldn't help but smile. You're proposing re-upping our contract because you love me? I'm proposing we see where this goes without artificial timelines. He tucked a curl behind her ear. And yes, because I love you. Is that so terrible? No, it's actually kind of perfect. They kissed then. Not chaste, not performative, but real, deep and slow and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Min-ho rested his forehead against hers again. We don't have to rush anything, he murmured. Separate wings, separate spaces, whatever you need. I know, Aaliyah's hand trailed down his chest, feeling his heartbeat. But maybe we could try sharing space sometimes? Not moving in together, just falling asleep together occasionally. Waking up together? His eyes darkened with emotion. I would like that very much. Tonight? Asked Aaliyah, surprising herself with the boldness. Are you sure? I'm sure I want to fall asleep in your arms. The rest we can figure out. She stood, offering her hand. Come on, your bedroom's bigger anyway. Min-ho laughed, that full, genuine sound she loved, and took her hand. They walked to the master wing together, and for the first time since the wedding night, Aaliyah crossed that threshold. The room was masculine but elegant, dark wood, crisp linens, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city. Min-ho gave her privacy to change in the attached bathroom, where she found one of his shirts to sleep in. When she emerged, he was already in bed, reading glasses perched on his nose, looking domestic and endearing. She climbed in beside him, and he immediately drew her close. She settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, feeling his fingers trace lazy patterns on her shoulder. This is nice. Very nice. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for being trustworthy. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, comfortable, at peace. No expectations beyond presence, no pressure beyond connection. When Aaliyah woke the next morning, sunlight streaming through the windows, Min-ho was already awake, watching her with soft eyes. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Good morning." She stretched, cat-like, then smiled. "This might become a habit. I'm counting on it." They made breakfast together, moved through their morning routine with new intimacy, and prepared for their respective days. But something had fundamentally shifted. The last walls between strategic arrangement and genuine partnership had crumbled. Over the following days, they established a new rhythm. Some nights Aaliyah stayed in the master wing, some nights she retreated to her space when she needed solitude. Min-ho never pressured, never assumed. He simply made himself available, and she responded in kind. Their relationship deepened in countless small ways. Inside jokes developed. She learned his tells, the slight furrow when he was worried, the barely there smile when he was pleased. He learned hers, the way she chewed her lip when strategizing, the little shimmy when she was excited about an idea. They started cooking dinner together most nights, working side by side in the kitchen, comparing their day's events. Min-ho began inviting her to sit in on business meetings, genuinely valuing her marketing perspective. Aaliyah started reviewing his contracts, catching details his lawyers had missed, her fresh eyes finding angles others overlooked. "You should officially join the company," Min-ho suggested one evening as they reviewed a particularly complex negotiation, not as decoration or nepotism, but as a genuine strategic advisor. "We could use someone with your insights. Wouldn't that cause problems? The family already thinks I married you for money and position. Let them think it. I know better. You know better." He squeezed her hand. "Besides, you'd earn every won. Your work on Mi-sun's rebrand has been exceptional. Sales are already up 15%. Aaliyah considered it. Joining Jung Holdings officially would tie her more completely to this family, this life. But it would also legitimize her position, demonstrate she was contributing value, not just accepting it. "I'll think about it," she promised. "That's all I ask." That weekend, they took their first trip together. A long weekend to Jeju Island, ostensibly for a business conference Min-ho needed to attend, but really an excuse for time away from family scrutiny. They walked beaches at sunset, explored volcanic landscapes, ate fresh seafood at tiny restaurants where no one recognized them. For 3 days, they were just a couple. Not Chairman and Mrs. Jung, not strategy and arrangement, just Min-ho and Aaliyah. On their last night, sitting on their hotel room's balcony overlooking the ocean, Min-ho grew serious. "I need to tell you something," he began. Aaliyah's heart clenched. "Okay. I've been looking into the threatening message you received, the one after our first family dinner." His expression was grim. "My security team traced it. It came from an account linked to one of Hae-won's assistants." Anger flared in Aaliyah's chest. She had someone threaten me? It appears so, though proving she ordered it versus the assistant acting independently is difficult. He took her hand. "I've addressed it directly with Hae-won, made it absolutely clear that any further threats against you will have severe consequences, professional and familial." How did she react? Denials, outrage at the accusation, claims of innocence. Min-ho's tone was disgusted. "But the threats have stopped, haven't they? That tells me everything I need to know." Aaliyah processed this, grateful for Min-ho's protection, but frustrated by the situation. "Your daughter threatened me, and we can't even prove it conclusively?" "We can't legally, but I can personally." His voice was cold. "I've reduced her role in the company, limited her access to certain resources. It's not public punishment, but she'll feel it, and she knows I'm watching. Thank you," Aaliyah leaned against him, "for protecting me, for taking it seriously. Always." He wrapped his arm around her. "You're mine to protect now. That's not just a saying, it's a commitment." The possessiveness should have bothered her. She'd always been independent, self-sufficient. But coming from Min-ho, it felt different. Not controlling, but claiming. Not limiting, but securing. I'm yours to protect, she agreed softly, and you're mine to care for. That goes both ways. He smiled, kissing her temple. Deal. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the waves, and Aaliyah realized something profound. She was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Not the artificial happiness of meeting expectations or achieving goals, but the real, messy, complicated happiness of genuine connection. The year was barely 6 weeks old. They had nearly 11 months left on their original arrangement, but already Aaliyah knew she wouldn't be leaving when it ended. She'd found something she hadn't been looking for, something that had blindsided her completely. She'd found home. Not in a place, but in a person, in a partnership that honored her strength while providing support, in a relationship that started as strategy but evolved into something infinitely more valuable. Minho, she said quietly, I love you. Simple words, but they felt monumental. I'm in love with you. He turned to her, his eyes suspiciously bright. Say it again. I love you. All of you. The strategist, the patriarch, the man who makes pancakes and can't brew coffee properly, the man who saw me as partner before trophy, who respects my boundaries while encouraging me to expand them. I love you. Minho cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. I love you too. So much it frightens me. So much I'd renegotiate everything in my life to keep you in it. They kissed, deep and passionate, pouring months of building emotion into that single connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minho's smile was radiant. So, he said, about that contract renegotiation. Aaliyah laughed, joy bubbling up through her chest. We have 9 months to figure that out. Or we could figure it out now, make it official. Not just a year, but indefinitely? She pretended to consider. That's a significant commitment. It is. With a man 40 years my senior, regrettably accurate, who married me to make a point to his family. Initially, yes, and who now claims to love me? Desperately. Aaliyah grinned. Then yes, let's renegotiate. Indefinitely, for real this time. Minho pulled her into his lap, holding her close. You've made me the happiest old man in Korea. You're not that old. I'm 68, and I'm 32, and none of it matters because we work. She kissed him again, softer this time. We actually work, Minho. Against all odds and expectations, we work. We do, he agreed, wonder in his voice. We really do. They stayed on that balcony until the stars came out, talking about the future. Real plans now, not hypothetical strategies. Where they'd live. The penthouse, obviously, but maybe a second home somewhere quieter. Children. Neither wanted them at this stage of their lives, but they'd be excellent aunt and uncle figures to any grandchildren. Careers. Combining their strengths into something powerful. Legacy. Building something together that would outlast them both. It was the conversation of two people genuinely planning a shared future, not hoping or dreaming, but actively constructing, and it felt absolutely right. When they finally went to bed that night, tangled together in the hotel's luxurious sheets, Aaliyah felt complete in a way she never had before. This was what partnership looked like, what love looked like when built on honesty and respect rather than illusion and performance. The prophecy had predicted transformation through a foreign woman and a corrected rejection. Well, Aaliyah thought as she drifted to sleep in Minho's arms, transformation had definitely occurred, just not the way anyone, including them, had expected. And it was more beautiful for being unexpected. 6 months after the wedding, the Jung family gathered for Chairman Jung Minho's 69th birthday celebration. The venue was the penthouse, a deliberate choice, showing that Aaliyah and Minho's space was now the family's central hub. Aaliyah moved through the party with practiced ease, greeting guests, managing caterers, playing hostess with the confidence of someone who'd earned her position. She wore a stunning gold dress that showcased her curves, her natural hair in an elaborate updo, diamond earrings that Min Ho had given her for their 6-month anniversary sparkling under the lights. She looked like power. Because she was. The past months had transformed her from strategy into substance. She'd officially joined Jung Holdings as Chief Marketing Officer, a position she'd earned through the successful relaunch of 3 subsidiary companies. The board voted unanimously. Even the members who'd initially been skeptical of her had been won over by results. Her own firm had merged with Jung Holdings' marketing division, creating a powerhouse that was already winning major contracts. She'd hired Simone to help manage the American market expansion, bringing her best friend to Seoul and creating a support system beyond Min Ho. The family dynamics had shifted too. Hae-won had eventually accepted defeat, attending family functions with cold civility but no longer actively hostile. Woo-sok had moved to Japan, taking a position there with a subsidiary, physical distance that allowed everyone to heal. Mi-sun had become not just an ally, but a genuine friend. Sun-hee visited regularly, sometimes just to have tea with Aaliyah and discuss philosophy or art. The Jung family was different now, more open, less rigid, slowly adapting to the change Aaliyah represented. But not everyone had embraced it. Aaliyah knew some members still whispered, still judged, still waited for the marriage to fail. Let them wait. She and Min Ho were building something solid, something real, something that would outlast the gossip. "Beautiful party," Mi-sun said, appearing at Aaliyah's elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "You've become quite the hostess." "I learned from the best." Aaliyah accepted the glass, clinking it against Mi-sun's. "Your mother taught me everything about managing Korean social expectations. And you taught her that some expectations are worth shattering." Mi-sun smiled. "She's genuinely proud of you. We all are." Across the room, Min Ho was holding court with business associates, but his eyes kept finding Aaliyah. When their gazes met, his softened immediately, a private smile just for her. She smiled back, a silent conversation passing between them. "I love you. I love you too." 6 months of that silent language. 6 months of learning each other's rhythms. 6 months of building a partnership that was somehow both unlikely and inevitable. The threatening messages had stopped completely. Hae-won had learned her lesson. The family had realized that Min Ho's commitment to Aaliyah wasn't a phase or a point. It was permanent. Later that evening, as guests began to leave, Min Ho found Aaliyah on the balcony, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline. "Hiding from your own party?" he teased, sliding his arms around her waist from behind, taking a moment. She leaned back against him, comfortable and content. "Hard to believe 6 months ago I was receiving rejection texts. Now I'm hosting birthday celebrations for my husband. Quite the transformation." He kissed her neck softly. "Any regrets?" "Not a single one." She turned in his arms, facing him. "You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner." His hands rested on her hips, thumbs tracing small circles, though perhaps the timing was perfect. We both needed to become who we are before we could build this. Very philosophical for a birthday boy. I'm allowed to be philosophical at 69. It's practically ancient. "You're not ancient," she kissed him, tasting champagne and promise. "You're perfect. Perfectly in love with you." "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." She pulled back slightly, her expression turning serious. "Min Ho, I want to talk about something." His brow furrowed slightly. Worry. She'd learned his tells. "Okay, the contract expires in 6 months. I think we should have a ceremony." "A ceremony?" "A real wedding, not a legal necessity or a strategic move. A celebration with our chosen family, our real allies. A commitment made not from desperation or strategy, but from love." She took his hands. "I want to marry you again. Properly this time." Min Ho's expression transformed, surprise melting into joy, his eyes growing suspiciously bright. "You want a wedding?" I want to marry you in front of people who genuinely support us. I want vows that we write ourselves. I want to celebrate this love we built from such unlikely circumstances." She smiled. "What do you say?" Instead of answering, Minho kissed her, deep and thorough and full of emotion. When he finally pulled back, both of them were breathing hard. "Yes," he said simply. "Yes to everything. A real wedding, real vows, real celebration." He cupped her face gently. "Though technically we'll already be married, it'll be the world's most elaborate renewal ceremony. Even better, we'll already know we work. No cold feet, no doubts, just celebration." They stood like that, holding each other under the stars, the party continuing inside without them. Around them, Seoul glowed. A city that had witnessed their unlikely love story, their transformation from strategy to substance. "Thank you," Minho said quietly. "For what?" "For saying yes that first night, for negotiating rather than refusing, for giving me a chance to know you, for choosing me every day since." His voice was thick with emotion. "You've given me a gift I didn't know I needed. A partner who sees me, challenges me, loves me not despite my flaws, but including them. You gave me the same gift," Aaliyah replied, her own voice unsteady. "You saw my strength when I felt broken. You protected my dignity when others tried to strip it. You loved me into becoming someone even braver than I knew I could be." They kissed again, softer this time, a seal on promises made and kept, a celebration of what they'd built, a declaration of what they'd continue building. Inside, the party was winding down. Tomorrow, they'd start planning their real wedding. Next week, they'd launch another business venture together. Next month, they'd travel to Atlanta so Minho could meet Aaliyah's family properly. Next year, who knew what they'd accomplish? But tonight, they simply held each other on the balcony, watching their city, counting their blessings, marveling how rejection had led to this, to love, to partnership, to transformation. The prophecy had predicted that a foreign woman would transform the Jung family. It had been right, but not in the way anyone expected. Aaliyah hadn't just transformed the family, she'd transformed herself, found love in unlikely places, and proven that sometimes the best plans are the ones that evolve beyond your wildest expectations. As they finally rejoined the party, Minho's hand secure in hers, Aaliyah looked around at the life they'd built together, at Misun laughing with Simone, at Sunhee discussing art with business associates, at Daehyun and the younger cousins who'd fully embraced her, at the empire they were reshaping, making more inclusive, more dynamic, more human. This was the transformation. Not dramatic revolution, but steady evolution. Not destruction, but reconstruction. And at the center of it all, two people who'd started as strategy and become something infinitely more valuable. True partners. Minho squeezed her hand, and she squeezed back, their silent language saying everything that needed saying. "I love you. I love you too. Always. Forever." The party continued around them, but they were complete within their own bubble. Happy, secure, together. Exactly as they were always meant to be. The end.